Good morning, everybody. So today I am going to be sharing my daughter's birth story. I've been she is now 2 months old. Her name is Ivy, and we are just absolutely in love with her. So I thought I would share a bit about my pregnancy and more specifically the later stages of my pregnancy and her birth and delivery. I was very lucky. I had a very smooth pregnancy, no complications. I did occasionally get a little bit of morning sickness. I did occasionally get a little bit of like dizziness and heartburn, but overall nothing major. It was just all like the usual kind of symptoms that you would expect to get while pregnant. But yeah, so I feel like I had a very lucky pregnancy, very smooth pregnancy, no complications. So she was due on the 28th of December 2021, and when my son was born a week early. So I had this feeling that she was going to be about a week early as well. So I was ready. 21st of December, I was ready, had my bags, my hospital bags packed, and I'm just sort of sitting there going, okay, where is she? Because I had no symptoms of labor at all, none. So I just kept waiting. Got to her due date. We had jokes because obviously Christmas time and all that sort of stuff. Christmas Day was the 25th. So we were having jokes on Christmas Day, like, oh, what happens if you go into labor, blah, blah, blah. Nothing happened. We enjoyed our Christmas Day. It was normal, fun Christmas Day. And then, yeah, so her due date, 28th of December, that rolled around and still nothing. So I was getting very impatient at that point. I'm just like, I'm ready. I'm here. I'm ready to meet her. But yeah, no, she was very comfy in there. She didn't want to come. So she didn't arrive on her due date. And then so every day that passed after her due date, I was like, okay, is today the day? Is today the day? Is today the day? Because I was just so ready. I was so ready to have her. I was at that point where I just had enough. And if you've ever had a baby, you'll know exactly what I mean by saying that. Like, you get to this point where you're like, okay, just get them out now, please. I want to meet my child. Like, yeah. Then on the 4th of January. So the 4th of January, she had still not come about. On the 4th of January, I got up and I was doing my normal routine. I was still waiting for her, still being very impatient about her arrival. And then I realized that I hadn't felt her move for about 2 hours. Actually, I realized I hadn't felt her move at all since I'd woken up, which I'd been up for about 2 hours at that point. And normally she was the most active first thing in the morning. And like I was sort of poking my stomach and I still felt nothing. So I did get a bit concerned at that point, and I called the midwife and I said, look, I haven't felt any movement. I've tried poking my tummy just to try and get a reaction out of her, and I got nothing. So she's like, okay, come in and we will monitor you and sort of see how everything's going. So I'm stressing out, absolutely stressing out. And turns out she was sleeping. That's what the midwife reckons. We put the monitor on. I found her heartbeat straight away. She still wasn't moving much, but she did start getting active later on that day. So the midwife's theory is maybe she was sleeping. Maybe she was just like, don't annoy me, Mom. I'm not responding to those pokes. Don't annoy me. Because, yeah, they checked her, they monitored her, and everything was okay. But at that point, I was 41 weeks. I was 41 weeks at that point. So they're like, look, okay, you've had reduced movement, even though it turned out that everything was fine. You still did have a little bit of reduced movement, like her pattern changed. And you are a week overdue. Let's induce you. So they booked me in for the next day. So I went in to get induced on Wednesday, the 5th of January. So 7 a.m. I had my bags packed. I piled them all into the car, and I got my stepmom to come and look after my 3-year-old. And we went off to the hospital to have a baby. I think I can hear her. She was sleeping, but I think she's woken up. Hang on one sec. Here she is. She woke up. You want to say hello? You say hi to everybody. Looks like you're waving, hey? Yes, Lexi. You like to see her. My doggy is very protective of her. This is Lexi, and she is very, very, very protective of little Ivy. Yes, which is good. So 7 o'clock in the morning, we got admitted into hospital. My husband and I, we went up there. So when I went to the midwives the day before, they checked me. They were going to do a stretch and sweep, and they checked me, and I was actually already 3 centimeters dilated, but I hadn't started any contractions. So my body was starting to try and start the birthing process naturally on its own. And the doctors did say that even if they didn't induce me, that I probably most likely would have gone into labor naturally over the next few days. But I was just so over at that point. Like, I was past the 41-week mark, and I'm just like, just get her out. Like, I was very, very happy when they said, do you want an induction? So yeah, so I was already 3 centimeters dilated when I went in there. So they just gave me the drip. So yeah, so they put the drip in my arm. I'm not sure. I think it's like oxytocin or something similar to that sort of style. Just a hormone just to kickstart contractions. So they did that 10 to 8. They put the drip in and broke my waters. And so they're like, all right, you can get up and move around. But obviously I was still a little bit restricted because I had the drip in my arm, but I could still get up and move around the room if I wanted to, if I needed to, whatever. So they were coming in and they were doing their checks about every 10 minutes or so, just to sort of see how I was tracking. I think it took about half an hour, and I started feeling very light period cramps. Like, nothing severe. It was just kind of like a very light kind of cramping sensation. And that was all fine. And then they kept, every half an hour, they kept upping the drip up until what they call the sweet spot, which is basically when active labor started. So they kept upping it, and then at about 10 a.m. I started active labor. So that's where they stopped upping the drip, and they just kept it at that level that it was at. I think from looking at it, I think it was about level 24. Not sure what that means. I just remember looking at the drip with the machine, and it just said 24 on it. So, and then when it started, it was at 6. So if anyone knows about any midwives out there watching, if you know what that means, yeah. Yeah, so active labor started at about 10 a.m. I was getting quite intense contractions at that point. Oh, baby, he's okay, hey? I ended up having the gas for pain relief, and which was very different because I wanted to see how I went, because when I had my son, I had no pain relief at all. That wasn't by choice. That wasn't by choice. It was when I had him, the labor was so fast that by the time I got to the hospital, I was already at 10 centimeters dilated, so they wouldn't give me any pain relief. So I had to do it all naturally. Whereas this time I was going to I went in there just being like, I'll see how I go. Like I did it all without pain relief last time, so I'll just see how it goes again. But this time being induced contractions, and I'm not trying to scare anybody here, but they are more intense. Induced contractions are more intense than natural spontaneous contractions because it's a synthetic hormone that is causing them. So I did find that I needed the gas, and she checked me again. I don't remember what time it was at this point. I kind of lost track of time. During this whole process, I lost track of time and I wouldn't have a clue what time it was, but she checked me again and she said I was at about 5 centimeters, and that's when I asked for the gas. And then it felt like only 10 minutes. It felt like it could have been more than 10 minutes had passed because, like I said, I'd lost track of time at that point, but it felt like it had been about 10 minutes and I started to feel the urge to push. And I told her that, like when I told her that, I mean, I screamed it at her. So yeah, and she said to me, she's like, 5 centimeters was being very modest. You felt more like you're at about 7. So yeah, so eventually she's like, just keep on with the gas, and just, yeah. So we didn't start pushing straight away, but a couple of contractions later, she checked me again and she's like, yeah, you're probably about 9 centimeters. She's like, if you feel the need to push, start pushing. More time went past. I had, so, and because I kept keeping the urge to push with every contraction, she's like, okay, you can start pushing. If it keeps happening, start pushing. So yeah, so I started pushing. I think it was about 11:45 I started pushing. So active labor was established at 10 a.m. and then about 11:45 I was pushing. Still with the gas. I still had the gas. I felt like it wasn't doing anything at that point because I think I was past the point of it working, but it helped with my breathing. So like I would help with breathing through the contractions, and also pushing, as I was pushing down, it helped with that too. So yeah, so I pushed and pushed and pushed, and then her head came out, and there was about 15 minutes between when her head came out and the shoulders came out. And that was a little bit concerning because she had the cord around her neck with her hand up against her face. So she was very blue. So yeah, you could tell they were trying to keep calm, but they were just like, they're looking at each other like, come on, contraction, like, come on, have a contraction so we can get the rest of her out. And thankfully a contraction did happen and they were able to pull her out. Like, so head was out, shoulders were out, and they'll be able to pull her out. But yes. And thankfully she's very healthy. She was a big baby. She weighed 4.1 kilograms, 4.160 kilograms, which is about 9.2 pounds. And she was 54 centimeters long. I don't know what that is in inches. I've got no idea. So yeah, so she was perfectly healthy when she was born. I did stay overnight in the hospital. I wasn't originally going to stay overnight after I had her, because I had the opportunity to go home after 6 hours because it was my second baby. But I then realized, because I'm not a big fan of hospitals. Never have been, never will be. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll just go home after 6 hours because I know that I'd rather just sleep in my own bed. Oh, baby, it's okay. It's okay, baby. But then I realized I have a 3-year-old at home who will have missed me because I hadn't seen him all day. So he'll probably want to jump over me because that's what he normally does when he gets home. He wants to jump all over me and say, play with me, mummy, play with me. And after birthing a baby, I did not feel up to that. So I stayed the night in the hospital and went home the next day and saw him the following afternoon because he was in kinder the next day. So I stayed overnight. I went home while he was still at kinder, and then he got to meet Ivy when he got home in the afternoon. So that was good. That was really good. That worked out really well. I got a really good rest in the hospital that night, and then I felt capable of going home and facing my 3-year-old. But he was really good. He was really good, and he's still really good with her now too. Like he loves his little sister. He absolutely loves her. Oh, why are you crying? Why are you crying, baby? Why? Oh, sweetheart, it's okay. Are you tired? So I felt very, 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 very lucky that I had a very positive induction experience because I have heard some horror stories. So I was a little bit concerned about, an induction was what I felt I needed. But in the back of my mind, I was a little bit concerned because I had heard so many horror stories of inductions that failed. So I am feeling very, very grateful that I had a positive induction experience. I had the most amazing midwife and doctor team that were looking after me, and also Ivy. So yeah, I felt very blessed that I got to have such a positive birth experience. And she is thriving now. Yeah. She is doing very, 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 very well. And we are all very, very happy and healthy. Yeah. So if you have any questions, if there's anything else you would like to know, let me know in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them all for you. And thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.